So a crisis or risk management plan is the actions you take and the policies and procedures you have in place to mitigate the possibility of a crisis actually happening on your campus. And that can be everything from practicing lockdown drills or fire drills to having the proper insurance coverage to protect your school, versus a crisis communication plan, which is what are the tools we're going to use to communicate in the event of a crisis? How are we going to get the message out, and what type of message are we going to send if and when a crisis happens? So the most important thing I think for schools to understand is that this can't be done in isolation. It's not just one person who's charged with communicating during a time of crisis. It really is a team approach. So the key players in your school need to come together, whether that's the head of school, your marketing communications director, division directors, perhaps your board chair, get together at least on an annual basis and talk about what some of those potential scenarios that could happen in your school might be, whether it's something as horrible as an active shooter drill on your campus, whether it's inappropriate conduct between a faculty member and a student, but really think through those scenarios. Literally write down the questions that constituents might ask you during a time of crisis, or that the media might ask you. Come up with possible answers to those. And then the other piece of that is to talk about how you're going to communicate as a group. So what are the different methods you have to communicate during a time of crisis, whether it's through your website, through email pushes, through social media, through phone chains, phone alert systems. So whatever those different types of communication vehicles you have, determining what's the best to use in which scenarios, because it's not always the same. Social media has really changed the game for schools when it comes to crisis communication, because the spread of information is so fast and so exponential. We can really risk losing control of the message. So social media is the tip of the iceberg, and we have to move more quickly than we ever did before, when it was just a regular news cycle of a 5 and 11 o'clock newscast in a morning paper. We have to think about the 30-24 rule. 30 being we have about 30 minutes to respond anytime there's a crisis situation at our school before the word gets out on social media, and the 24 being 24 hours a day. We have to constantly be managing and monitoring the message that's going out there so we can be aware of what's going on. So any faculty or staff member or volunteer that might be speaking on behalf of the school should absolutely have media training. And so that would definitely include your head of school, who's often the primary spokesperson for a school. Anytime you have a new board chair come in, you would want to train your board chair in how to deal with the media. And that's because if you have a head of school who's in crisis, the de facto spokesperson becomes the board chair. So anytime you have a new board chair come in, significant turnover in your leadership or administrative team at your school. Also recommend doing media training with coaches as well. So coaches are maybe the most often tapped when it comes to doing media interviews, whether on camera or for print.